Thank you all for being here, and we're excited to get started. So, I'm going to on here. We'll introduce ourselves as today's presenters. So I am Kim Hales. I am the Director of Client Services at Sukup and have about a 20-year career in fundraising. And I am excited to be here today to talk about one of my favorite topics. So I will turn it over to Lou to introduce himself as well.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you all for participating. I've been in fundraising most of my life. I think it started when I was in college. Actually, it did start when I was in college. And somehow every organization I worked with, mostly in the nonprofit field, needed somebody to fundraise, and I would raise my hand. So I've been doing it for a lot of years, mostly in higher education, where I've run, I've been the executive officer, director of the foundation, senior vice president for advancement for 3 universities, and here in Naples, Florida, working with Sukup, working with nonprofit work, and right now I'm working with the Immokalee Foundation, which is an organization that I continue to fall in love with. So it's easy for me to really, talk about the Immokalee Foundation, what we're doing. But it's great to be here. Thank you, Kim.
Welcome. So again, today's objectives for the webinar are really to talk about and understand the importance of donor stewardship, how you can really take some of those strategies, implement them in your organizations, developing those for year-round communication with your donors. Again, we'll get into this, but obviously stewardship is not a one-time thing, and it's not just after someone makes a gift. So how you can really communicate with everyone year round, and how you measure and evaluate that success and what that looks like. So, as we go through this is what we hope you'll take away from today. And again, if there are questions, please post them in the chat. We'll have some time at the end, but we'll also try to address them as we're going through as they are relevant. That said, we're going to go into what is donor stewardship. And Lou, I'm going to turn that over to you to talk a little bit about what that really means, what that means to you, what you've seen, in your career, as it being, again, like I said, it's beyond just a thank you.
Well, I see it as, and I'll talk more about this when we get to personal engagement, but it's really a lot of working with a lot of intelligence that we now have available with various databases and AI software to really gain a really good insight and knowledge of the prospect you're working with, of the donor you're working with. So to me, it's all about building relationships, and it's all about making sure that we, in every step that we take, is really in the best interest of the donor. And so I think one reason why I've had really good success over the years, it really came down to have a genuine interest in the donor's ability to give, and their the affinity to give, really what they want to do that's meaningful to them, and sometimes even get into that conversation with them in terms of what's meaningful to them. I tend to see fundraising through the eyes of a major gift officer, which is really my love, and that, again, that has to do with the excitement of building relationships, get to know your donor, and doing really what I think in stewardship, trying to get in touch with their real need for giving, and then come back with a stewardship plan, or that basically recognizes that, and so I think the more, with major gifts in particular, the more different you can be with giving, that's really very unique to that individual. That's kind of where I'm always looking to go. I'm trying to do something different than maybe what's been done in the past. So to me, I guess the answer to stewardship is really making sure we do right by the donor in terms of thanking them for their gift and being genuine in that process.
Yeah, I think, again, when you talk about that, certainly at a major gifts level, but at any level, it's really one of the most important things to do. And, we'll get into some of the reasons why, from just a ROI perspective for your organization, but really thinking about how you're communicating and when you're communicating, not just during the ask and right after the ask. Because again, I think our role, and many roles as fundraisers are to connect people, to make an impact for the causes that they're passionate about. And that's if they're giving $50 or $500,000, and how you can communicate with them about the impact of those gifts at any level.
If I can just make a comment.
Yeah.
I don't see stewardship as, I know it's part of the fundraising cycle, right? So, and I look at everything through that cycle, but at the same time, stewardship it takes place in every part of that cycle. When you're building that relationship, before that is prospecting, and you're in many ways doing stewardship even while you're prospecting. So I think, so when you're at an event and so forth, it's always about thanking them. It's always about thanking them for thinking about the organization. It's always about recognizing, why if they're a prospect and you're getting to the point where you're going to start cultivation, even, thank you for, wanting to get to know us. So to me, stewardship is kind of ongoing. It's not just waiting for the gift to come in and then have to do it.
I moved forward too quickly while you were finishing, but in addition to all of the reasons I think we know are important in stewardship, one of the data-driven facts in why it's important is just in terms of an ROI and how much it costs to acquire a new donor versus how much it costs to do that stewardship plan. And, I'll ask a question for people to put in the chat. How many of you are tasked by your organizations to find new donors, find new donors, find new donors? And how much of and you don't have to necessarily put this in the chat, but I want you to think about that. And how much of your focus is put on stewardship, and how much time and what gets pushed to the wayside in this attempt to gain new donors. And we all every organization needs new donors, but if you're not looking at what you're doing from a stewardship perspective, you're spending so much more time and money and resources to acquire new donors. Again, that's a necessary piece, but if you're not also focusing on the stewardship and looking at what that looks like, you are spending more time and money to do that acquisition. So again, looking at all of this, the AFP has done lots of studies. This is from their fundraising effectiveness project, what the response rate is, what your lifetime value of a donor is when you're constantly acquiring and then losing new donors, and how you're communicating with them versus what you're looking at in terms of retention rates and stewardship, and just, again, how much more it's costing you, and thinking about that when you're allocating your time and putting together those stewardship plans. So again, looking at improving donor retention and some of the recommendations, and we're going to go into each of these as its own topic, but overall, looking at how you create that personalized engagement and how you do that at any level, right? And your stewardship and personalized engagement, we'll get to this next, looks different for major gifts than it does for an annual gift or your monthly donors. But how you personalize that across the board is really important. Again, thinking about it in terms of regular touch points versus just the thank you after the gift. How you can encourage monthly giving programs. We'll get to the automated email drip campaigns are really one of my favorite topics to talk about this because again, your major gift stewardship can be really focused on individual donors. But if you can set up automations, we live at a time when it's so easy to use some of those tools to be able to communicate broadly and to set it and forget it a little bit. So looking at that and then refining your approaches based on that data. So again, looking at all of these and how that will help improve donor retention. So personalized engagement, and I think this is, topic near and dear to Lou's heart. I'm going to let him talk a little bit about how those create stronger relationships and what that looks like.
Well, that's why I do it. I mean, it's all about the love for building a relationship and seeing every meeting, and particularly it's a face-to-face meeting, as kind of a gift to be able to, make something happen for the donor who wants to do something significant because they see value in their giving, and also for the organization. At the same time, we really need to have the technology, the data, and the matrix to be able to um, really better understand the person you're working with, and particularly for major gifts. Actually, for all level of giving, it really starts with the research, and we're raisers at Black Blood House, and so we have actions, and I just chose the actions to be the fundraising cycle. It's research, prospecting, cultivation, solicitation, and of course recognition. And then we can measure that on a monthly basis. It's kind of interesting. If you begin your fundraising year, you're kind of doing a lot more research and prospecting. As you get towards the end of your year, you're doing a lot more, solicitation and recognition. But we believe in really using whatever wealth engines there are, or management systems there are, to really do research up front and do really good prospecting. And we always qualify our prospects, working with the technology. I like iWave for that, but we also have a researcher that takes the iWave data and then does some field research. So we have really good information on a prospect. And so we get off the ground, I think, in the right step. That typically it's a donor, that a prospect that really is interested in the organization that you have. And then, of course, the cultivation process. So by the time you get done with, with the gift that comes in, you can really personalize how you're going to recognize that individual. And again, like I said before, make it, very original, and it's going to be very genuine. And it's going to be something that they know that you know them well enough that you pick that particular gift. One example is we had a person, the late Myra Daniels, who was kind of one of the Doms of Naples, who started the Philharmonic, and she loved flowers. Every time I was with her in her office, she'd have flowers. And but I also knew that she was allergic to certain flowers, and so we wanted to make a nice gift. And I thought flowers would be good because she loves them. And I called the florist and I said, I'd like to get flowers from Myra Daniels. And she says, well, what would you like to have? And I said, well, if you don't know what flowers she likes, I'm gonna have to go on to another florist. And I did. I called another florist and I said, I'd like to get flowers from Myra. And they said, we know exactly what she likes. She has allergies. So that kind of personalization really is something that we like doing. And on top of the standard letters that you get, or a signature card that you might get. But if you can get to a point with a donor where you can be that personal in terms of your gift, I think it goes a long way.
Yeah, and again, you're not going to be able in your organizations to know and to be able to do that for every donor. So segmenting is one of the most important things you can do, and understanding what that looks like for each segment of your constituency. Again, we live in an age where there are a lot of tools and resources. We also live in an age where individually we're getting personalized communications from everywhere, right? You think one thing about something you might want to buy and you're getting an ad for it. So people have come to expect a little bit of that understanding of who they are and what they're looking for. And I think that has shifted into that stewardship landscape. And so to be able to really understand your donors' motivations. And so, looking at how you segment that. Are you segmenting it by giving level, which is important because, obviously at your major gift level, you're going to steward people differently. But are you segmenting based on what program they're giving to, or when they gave and what time of year, and understanding maybe what those motivations are and then tailoring your communication to that. Because if a donor gave to a specific program, whether, again, they gave $100 or $1,000, maybe that likely matters to them more than the amount of that gift. So if you can tailor your communication based on those programs, you're personalizing it even more. You're showing them that you understand what they gave to, what motivates them, what matters to them, and then you're, thanking them with that in mind. And I think that matters. Knowing what kind of recognition a donor wants, right? Some people, it is that public recognition. They want other people to know. They want to use their gift to inspire other people to give. Some people don't want that recognition. They prefer that private, and a phone call from the CEO or a board member is going to be way more meaningful than any kind of public recognition for them. So understanding that, because that's one thing that can really upset a donor in either direction. If you gave them some sort of public recognition that they didn't want, or if you didn't understand what was motivating them and what was going to be meaningful to them. So really tailoring that kind of engagement is going to be really important to, again, grow those gifts over time. And that's really, there are lots of reasons for stewardship, because you should genuinely care about your donors and why they're giving, and want to see them understand the impact that they're making. But also it's to grow their gifts over time and to encourage them to continue to support the organization. And so, looking at how you tailor those communications. And again, you're not going to be able to do everything for everybody. So segmenting them on how you're going to be able to most effectively use your time and resources, and your volunteers' time and resources. I think one of the most underutilized resources in most nonprofits are volunteer thank you calls. And it doesn't have to be your board members. Yes, should you have board members calling your major gift donors? Absolutely. But could you have volunteers or interns or high school service group calling your donors and thanking them? That phone call, and we'll get to some of this in a little bit, can increase that retention rate in a really significant way. And Lou, did you have something else to say here? Yeah.
I'd like to add to that too. It's really important that, again, depending how you segment it, but if you're looking for the larger gifts, and particularly, it's almost a must, but you really do need to record the actions you took. So if it's a personal email or a call, we use Razor's Edge. That goes into the action step for Razor's Edge. And probably, and we also have, what's kind of cool is you have, when you're doing the emails, you can actually click a button on the email that you sent to your donor, and it can actually be filed into Razor's Edge. And I'm sure other wealth management systems probably has that function that you could use. So you can very quickly, within seconds, send a letter out. No, sorry, my apology, an email out to a person, and do a quick click, and probably within maybe 10 seconds, it's entered into your database system. So check your databases, see if it has that function. But that's really good, because when I make phone calls, I pull up the donor record and I read the donor record. So my phone call, when I do call them and thank them, I've got really good information in there that talks about their participation at an event that we might have had, or maybe there was surgery that the husband had and you're talking to the spouse, you want to know how that went. So it gives you just really the good information so that you can be very personal with that phone call. So I do like working with my wealth management system in front of me when I make the call, and having all that data in there that really speaks to what the next step is, engagement. But I have all that information ahead of me that I can bring up in conversation and just have a quality conversation. And I always look forward to the conversations because I'm prepared. So record keeping these contacts that you have is really important to when you get to recognition.
Mm-hmm. And again, Lou, talking about how you maintain those regular touch points. Again, I think for a lot of organizations using their CRM to create actions, to have those set. That's not something everybody is doing. I think those are incredibly helpful ways to do that work. But, thinking about what you can do on a year-round basis. I'd love to ask the question again. You can post in the Q&A. Does everyone know, obviously you get, if people are giving online, for the most part, your, thank you letter is going out immediately and automated. But does everyone know what their time frame is from a gift, from a check being received in the mail till the donor is getting a thank you? We were working with an organization recently who told me that their timeline was 4 weeks. And I said, if you do nothing else, if you make no changes, 48 hours. That's what it should be. Those should go out right away. That is the first touch point with a donor, and especially a brand new donor. You can't wait for that piece. And I know we're talking about year round, and it's not just the thank you, but if you're not starting out strong with that thank you right away, you're, really going to miss the opportunity to do that. Lou, some of your other kind of suggestions and how you manage your team at really creating those regular touch points where you're not just thanking them for their gift, and then the next year, 2 weeks before they made their gift that last year, you're reaching out to ask for another one. What are you doing on kind of that year-round basis to make sure that those touch points are consistent? Lou?
Oh, was that for me?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, you're asking
Okay.
the guest. We have a weekly report so it's not, it may not be 8 hours, but if we have the information, ahead of time, then of course we'll do it as soon as we get that. But typically, we get a weekly report on the gifts that come in, and we have our directors of development that will receive that, and this way they can find out who made the gift. And if it's in their portfolio, they immediately will contact their donor, and of course make them aware they received the gift. Just let you know we received a gift. Thank you very much. Let's get together. Maybe have lunch. So we can thank you in person, for an example. And those that are not in the portfolio, that they'll go into a separate portfolio where we know that there's the automation will be generated, and they'll start getting the monthly records and come out and so forth, newsletters and all of that. So, but the thank you does come out immediately electronically. That happens immediately, and it should happen that quickly. But the follow-up, that personal follow-up, typically is about a week later. In our process, if we can speed it up, it's great. If we know, again, the gifts coming in, I had one just came in yesterday where I immediately contacted the donor and thanked them, by email. And I thanked him. I said, let's get together in person to so I can properly thank you. And then I clicked the button and went right into Razor's Edge as part of the action. So it worked out pretty good. So I'm not sure if that answers your question or if there's questions from the guest on that. But again, anything we can do that's personal to recognize the gift. And again, a great opportunity to be able to call up to thank them, and then maybe suggest getting together, for a cup of coffee to, thank them in person.
I'm interested, if you guys want to post in the chat, how many of you have a system in place to make phone calls, whether that's your board or volunteers? Are you at every board meeting giving a list of gifts that came in that you want your board to call? Are those something that's on your stewardship plan and that you guys are doing on a regular touch point? Impact reports, also a really great way. I know there's a lot of organizations who have moved away from, printing out and mailing a full annual report. But having that impact report piece where donors can really see exactly what the impact of the organization has been is a really fantastic stewardship piece. And if you aren't currently doing those, I think, that's something that's really important. And you could even, I think we think about digital versus mail. Obviously mail is much more expensive, and the, reliability of everything getting into mailboxes these days, but because people are getting so much, digital junk, sometimes doing that mail piece can be really impactful. So if you have your impact report, instead of mailing that out, you send a postcard with a QR code to it that says, we'd love for you to check this out. Then people aren't getting something in their mail they're going to throw away, but you've let them know in a different way, because mailboxes are becoming less full, and it's standing out a little bit more sometimes.
Yeah, I think impact reports, and particularly for that donor that really likes to look at the matrix, wants to look at your budget, wants to look at program success and so forth. So the more you have of that in your impact report that really answers that question with evidence in terms of the work you're doing, is powerful. And we use it, we like to hand them out. It's a great way to call somebody up and say, we'd love to get together. I'd like to share with you, go through with, the impact report. I know you have interest in this. And so it's a way of getting a meeting, making another contact, a face-to-face contact. The more face-to-face contacts you can make, reasonably make, depending on your situation, the better. And we have events. We have point of entry events, and where we bring prospects in that have been well qualified based on the research. And so we know they already have a strong, capacity, propensity, but a strong affinity to your organization based on the research. But if we have the impact report there, we hand that to them. We can talk about it maybe in the presentation. They can leave with that. So to me, the impact report is key. I think you have to have it. And if you don't, I think it's something that you really need to take a look at and see if you can make happen. Because donors want to know where their money's going. They want to know how successful you are. I've always said, if faith is something you can't see, but the evidence is there. And so particularly for those momentous gifts, the large gifts, if you're looking to create something that's new, capital campaign or a new program, if you have the evidence, you have the ability to really bring that gift in with the proper cultivation of the right donors that would want to hear about it. So evidence is key, and the impact report really provides that evidence the donors need to feel good about their giving. So I think it's key.
All right. Monthly giving programs. And this is something that I think, obviously when we talk about major gift level stewardship, there's a different, philosophy and segmentation, but monthly recurring giving programs are so vital to organizations now. If you look at some of this data, Neon One did a recurring giving report a little bit late last year, and looking at the increase just from 2018 to 2022, it's increased 144%. So if you are not offering an easy way for people to make recurring gifts, you're missing the boat on a really great way for donors to engage with you, for you to know and be able to budget that, but also for, once someone's giving and they're giving on a monthly basis, they're less likely to become a lapsed donor unless you're doing something, you're not, again, stewarding that in the right way. That's a consistent opportunity for them to continue giving and for you to maintain that year after year and month after month. So those monthly giving programs are really, really important, but it's also important to be stewarding those the right way. Someone's been giving $25 a month for 2 years. If you haven't talked to them, if you haven't identified, maybe what their capacity is, why they've been giving, and talking to them about what that would look like, what an increased gift would look like, you're also missing some opportunities. I think, too often, we look at monthly donors and they're giving, even if it's $10 every month, if they've been doing that for 2 years, you're talking about a donor who has a real affinity for your organization, who has capacity to do that, and that ability to increase can make a huge impact on the organization. So I think one of the things that many organizations either don't do or don't do well is steward those monthly donors. I mean, obviously they're giving online. they're getting a thank you or an automated receipt, but what else is happening, and what kind of programs do you have for those monthly donors that are encouraging them to maintain that, or that are encouraging people to move into a monthly gift program? Again, from a cash flow perspective and a budgeting and forecasting, if you know that they're giving this much every month, you're not having to determine, okay, well, in February, last year these donors gave, we need to send them out something. Making those recurring gifts can make your engagement with the donor much better, and allow the organization to budget a little bit better. And I think that has just increased and increased. And I think donors who are giving more and more from a dollar perspective every month as well on that monthly giving. Again, just looking at ways that you can encourage that, and then what you're doing with them after they make those gifts every month. And that kind of brings me into this next section, which is automated drip campaigns. And I would love to know if anyone, in here is using an automated campaign for their stewardship. So please, post in the Q&A if anyone is already using this. There are some amazing tools out there right now that are making this so much easier than it would have been, 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And you can set them, they're automated, and they're happening based on your segmentation. So how do you utilize them? And there are so many systems. Constant Contact has it, and MailChimp, and some of the CRMs. And if you're looking at doing even more, there are other really specific drip campaign software that you can use, but you don't have to go into that level. You can do that through a lot of the systems you probably already have. It requires that segmentation. So what are you going to do for a first-time donor, and what kind of, and I'll go back to this drip, is really dripping out content, right? A welcome email, first-time donor drip campaign, a welcome email. A week later, a story about what their gift, what is happening in the organization. Another week later, a behind the scenes video. It could be 2 weeks, depending on how you're segmenting that, right? Looking at what you're going to do for a first-time donor and a new gift, how you can do that. Again, major gifts can still have, you want to do those personalized reach outs and phone calls and all of that, but they could also go into a drip campaign too. You're just giving more opportunity to help build relationships. So if you can segment those donors, again, back to my earlier comment about knowing what's important to them, what program, can you focus a drip campaign on everyone who gave to this particular program and keep updates on those? They're ones that you set up one time, and they just are automated to do that. So if will it take some time to set it up? Absolutely. But then you have that over time, and you're creating those engagement opportunities on a regular basis without utilizing too much staff time. And, again, looking at what our organizations are always a little bit, overtaxed and under-resourced in terms of, human capital and time. So how do you use the tools that are available in today's day and age to be able to build these out? And how can you,
we have the Mockley Foundation, a marketing communications operation. We've got a good team of people that do great work with social media, and responses are remarkable in terms of opening the information we send out on a regular basis. But for a smaller charity that may not have a marketing team, or maybe a person part-time marketing, what can we do for them? Are there consultants out there that can help with that? I know Sukup, does some of that as well, all of that. But maybe some advice for the smaller organization that really struggles with not having a real strong marketing communications operation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, looking at all of the tools and even some free tools that are available for organizations, one of the things we do for a lot of clients is put together that marketing and communications plan, and how you can again plan out for, even an entire year, how you're going to communicate, what you're going to communicate, and build those things. So certainly that's something that we offer and help clients with. Especially those really small shops who don't have you guys have an incredible marketing team, and you know exactly at what level a donor is going into the funnel for those, marketing emails and sort of those automated campaigns, and who's going directly into a portfolio. But not everybody has that. And if you're a one person show in a development shop, this seems really overwhelming. But that's why these are so great, because, whether that's us as a consultant or just, spending some time to set that up one time, that's going to free up your time, because it's an automated way to do those thank yous, to build those relationships, to send out information where you've set it up, and you put a new donor in that funnel, and it's going to automatically send that email at 1 week and 1 month and 2 months and 4 months, however you've set that up. So yes, for those, smaller organizations, we are able to help build that. I think there are tools and resources out there that are free, again, if you're small, to be able to do those things too. And then if you're already using some email marketing tools, a lot of those are expanding to have those built in as well. So thanks for that question. That's a really great point, though. Right. Data-driven approach. I think this is some of fundraisers' least favorite words. Sometimes you're right, reporting and tracking. Well, many of us would rather be out talking to donors and raising money. I am one who does like to understand the data and really know exactly what you're doing, because I think that can inform how you approach your work and what that looks like in terms of allocating resources and time to different activities. So, looking at how you're tracking and what you're tracking in your organization. Do you know your donor retention rate? I mean, that's a number everyone should know. And if that number is low, looking at what your stewardship plan is and where you're maybe falling short in being able to communicate and encourage those donors to continue to give. I talked a little bit earlier about that monthly giving and knowing your donors' kind of lifetime value. Again, if they've been giving a small amount every month over their lifetime, that adds up to a pretty big amount, and not just looking at what did they give this year. And then again, lapsed donors. How many people have a really strong campaign for their lapsed donors that is more than just last year you gave us this, would you consider that gift? Or, we noticed you haven't made a gift this year. Lou, I'd love to know from you again, when you guys look at this from your experience, but especially in the Mockley Foundation now, what kind of programs you have in place for those metrics and tracking.
Well, we have all of it, because we're a black bought house, but what we do is our fundraising season in South Florida is, it kind of starts in November, but really kind of picks up steam in January, more February, March, big months. So what we do is we do a comparison report or a variance report of people who gave, let's say, our fiscal year ends, the end of June. So I can run a report, and we have done this. We're still working on it, but folks that gave in third and fourth quarter of last year, during our fundraising season, and so we know who made gifts, who those individuals are. They made the gift. We know how much they made. So it's a great opportunity to pick up the phone, call them in January and February and say, I want to thank you for your continued support. Thank you for your support last year. Love to get together with you to tell you what we're doing this year, and try to get, again, that face-to-face meeting if you can, but try to get the person to give again, and maybe give it the same level, or maybe after the conversation we'll say, we're growing on our scholarships, we're adding more students, and they may give larger amounts. So it's a great opportunity to be able to use that data to make that contact with the donor who gave, the same time last year, as opposed to waiting for them to see if they're going to do it again. So, and then again, it's part of the recognition, but at the same time, it's solicitation. You're recognizing them, but we thank you for your past support. We're now, heading into our fundraising season. We'd love to get together with you, talk about, your future giving and so forth. So it's used in a way that we can actually make contact, whether it's an email or again, the coffee or lunch, whatever it might be. But we use, and of course, the lapsed donors we look at, and that's another project. So summer's a good time to maybe work with lapsed donors and you pick them up and see what happened and so forth. And again, all of these contacts are recorded. They go into the donor profiles, and so when we go into our management system, we can pull that information up and have really good insight into how we should make that phone call, what the message should be. So, but definitely something we do.
Yeah, and for those organizations who have whose donors are engaging, whether they're a member, you're a museum and they're a member, or they're volunteering, that we miss you is such a great phrase. And it's not just about their gift, right? I actually just got an email from an organization that I have volunteered with and haven't really engaged with in the last 6 months or so. I have a monthly donation going to them, but I haven't been in the building or volunteered in a long time. And their message was, we miss seeing you. Wasn't we miss your gift? Because I'm still giving to them. But that made me think, oh, wow, they know that I haven't been there. They want to know why I haven't been there. They want to tell me that they miss my engagement with them, not just my dollars. And I think that is really impactful. So if you're tracking what your donors, this goes to volunteers too, are doing, and if they haven't been there or they haven't engaged in a while, sending them that, just again, acknowledging that you see their value beyond their dollars and how they're engaging with your organization. I do want to get to our next slide. We're just going to talk a little bit about some best practices. Again, we've talked a lot about that, but we'll open it up to questions after this. So if you've been holding on to a question or have something, we're going to talk a little bit about, a few more examples, but please put in your questions so we can get to those right after this. So again, Lou, want to talk about just some more of those best practices, a few more examples that you have from your career in that, specifically about listening to donors and soliciting feedback. I think one of the things, we don't always want to hear bad news. So are we asking donors why they didn't give, what they like about our solicitation process, and taking that feedback and really incorporating it into what we're doing?
Well, I think I've been talking a lot about this. It's again, it's maybe a story would be one just happened this past week. This was a person who came out to one of our. I like working with the estate planning communities, and I like working with investment houses, and because they're dealing with clients that have wealth and an interest in philanthropic giving, and a good percent of them now, more and more, are opening their doors to the fundraising community. I know our estate planning council here in Naples is now allowing fundraising professionals to come into the organization because donors are asking questions about, who should I give money to? So we'd like to, this was a person that we met at an investment house who sponsored a point of entry event. It's one of their clients that was giving in another state scholarships to high school students that were at risk. And he was really interested in what we're doing because we do the same thing here in Immokalee, Florida. And that led to a tour, and called me up and he said, let's get together for coffee. And actually I called him, I'm sorry. And because he said he was interested in making the gift, and he did make the gift, and we just I thanked him in person and got to know him a little bit. He's somebody that he actually said these words. He says, my goal is to make 1,000 scholarships in my lifetime. And he's a younger guy. He's probably in his mid-50s. So, so I said, well, we can help with that. But he was able to share personal stories and about his life. So to me, it's really about that. It's really about I know that we did right by him. I know every step in the process. When I left that meeting, the next step was something that would be right for him, something that we could offer him that would make sure that he knew his gift was doing the right thing. And so that might be a conversation with maybe one of our students, or it might be maybe matrix he's looking to have to kind of see how his gift is making a difference. So it's those type of contacts and stories and conversations that you can only have if you really do your research, have the intelligence, and really look forward to those visits. And so you need to be passionate about those visits and know that these really are gifts. These are opportunities for you to really make something wonderful happen for the donor and also for the organization you work for.
Yeah. And, I think that
And by the way,
goes to
that
also.
first time gift was $50,000, and a $10,000 gift. If the person is really interested in the organization and you do the proper cultivation and recognition over a 3 or 5 year period, is going to be minimum 6-figure gift, maybe 7 if you're in a campaign. A $50,000 gift, we know in 3 to 5 years can be a 7-figure gift, and in his case, it would be because the research says it could be. So, if you do it right, you're not just it's not just the first gift they make or the second gift they make. It's really about the relationship you're building and what they're looking to do in terms of their philanthropic plan.
Yeah. And what you do when you haven't done right by the donor, I think is an even
Damage control.
bigger question, right? Some of us walk into an organization where there's been transition, or one of my one of the things that I've done in my career that I think is really important when I've gone into an organization is look at those lapsed donors and reach out about why, not to ask them. I worked in an organization that their person who had, been the gala chair, and her husband had been a huge volunteer, in fact, even training volunteers. When I walked in the door to take over the fundraising helm there, I was told, don't reach out to them. They're mad at us. They don't want anything to do with us. Instead of, okay, well, I'm not going to not reach out to them. I'm not going to ask them for anything, but I did. I reached out and said, I'm, the new director of philanthropy, and I would just love to hear your perspective. I understand that you've walked away from engagement with the organization right now. I just want to hear your perspective. And the email I got back was, I left my notes with, and she named the previous person. Okay, she clearly doesn't want to talk. So, 6 months later, I reached out again. I'd really just love to hear your perspective. I know some time has passed. I've learned some things as we try to be better. We would love to hear your perspective. Didn't respond to that. Then, they purchased a raffle ticket for something. So I reached out, right? They were still following the organization. This was an organization they had been involved in for years and loved. So excited to see that you guys purchased a raffle ticket. Good luck. A little bit of fate in my favor is that they won the raffle. It had nothing to do with that. I wasn't involved at all. It was completely random. But instead of, sending out the, our marketing team and all that, I called them and said, congratulations. Can I drop off your winnings? And I did. And then they were willing to meet with me. And they met with me and had coffee with me and the CEO and had a lot of pretty negative things to say. But we took action on those negative things. And now, are they at the place where they're giving where they were? No, but they're re-engaged and they're coming to events and they're slowly getting back into an organization that they really love. Because I was persistent in hearing that negative feedback and took that feedback. Some things we couldn't change. Some things were just the shift of the organization and how that was working. But the things that we could, and we listened and we did what we could to help re-engage them. And I think that's really impactful when you talk about, right? It's easy to talk to a donor who's happy with you, those challenges is when a donor isn't, and how do you continue to be persistent about that? Not because of a gift, but because you really want the feedback and to understand where, possibly you went wrong, and are able to incorporate that into what you're doing with donors.
Can I do a quick, I know we're short on time, a
Yeah.
quick story. Okay, earlier in my career, I was with the VP for the foundation, and we were on an ask with one of our parents of a student. And it was a $50,000 ask way back when. And we got there to ask for the gift, and this couple began to complain about everything that was happening. Not getting recognition all these years for making the gift. The money was used for the wrong reasons. It was heated. And they got done discharging all this stress and anger. And all of a sudden they calmed down, and my donor says, well, we'd still like the $50,000 gift for scholarship. And they said, okay. So it taught me that sometimes I have to get rid of the anger or get rid of the stress. And when they get rid of it, suddenly they can think clearly, and it's gotten off their chest. And that's the perfect time to ask for the gift.
Yeah.
And over the years, I've learned that, and I've had other situations where that's happened, and they made the gift. Interesting.
Yeah, I do see one question in the chat, so I'm going to ask and answer that in a second. So if you have other questions, please post them in there. We would also love, as I just talked about, feedback. We love feedback from our webinars as well. So you'll get a link when you get the recording. We will send this out to everybody who attended today. But also there's a QR code there with our cat encouraging you to take a little photo of that and give some feedback about today's webinar. But one of the questions in the chat is, if you're a really small org, how do you prioritize the segments you mentioned? And I think, that is fairly personal to your organization, but I think segmenting them, again, if you are a small organization who maybe doesn't have a major gifts program and your gifts are at a certain level, I would look at, the frequency. If you have donors who have been giving for multiple years, looking at that, because, your engagement, they have a different level of engagement with the organization if they've been giving again and again. Looking at new donors is a segment that should have its own, automated process that you should be really, that first time gift, I think, 80% of those don't give again. So if you can prioritize that and looking at how you are really engaging with them on that first time gift. And then again, if you have certain programs and people are giving to that specific program, I think segmenting it in that way, because you're, again, understanding what's motivating them and what they're looking for. And again, we are happy to answer questions on this topic and any topic. Obviously, we have a whole host of different services that we offer. But if you have questions, reach out for a consultation. We're happy to just talk about the work we do, but also answer some of those questions on how you can do that without in a consultation that we can do. So, but I do think if you can look at what your priorities are as an organization and what your scope of gifts look like, you can segment them according to what your real priorities are within your organization. I don't know if you have another answer to that one.
Yeah, real quick. Definitely, if you don't have a strategic plan, have a strategic plan. So you take a look at where you're going to be 3 years out, and how exciting that is, and have a board that buys into that plan, because it's going to now depend on the board to get you there to grow your organization so you can add the staff you need. And you need to have more of a functional board that's really going to help you with fundraising. But if you don't have the plan, you're going to kind of stay where you are. But have a plan that is very strategic, where you have very, very specific goals and benchmarks in terms of the benchmarks you need to be able to have in order to get to where you want to be 3 years, and with the staffing you need to have, and create excitement around that so that your board would help support that. Maybe if they don't have the capacity to make that happen, to work with others that can do that. But I think having something you can't see, but the evidence is there to bring your organization to a different level. But you have to have a planning process, one that has benchmarks along the way that are very innovative and fundamental in terms of where you want to be.
Right. Well, again, everyone will get a recording of this webinar and the slides. If there are other questions, you are welcome to reach out to us at any point. And we thank you for participating today. Hope everyone has a great afternoon.